Hi, welcome back to our first edition of Blues Talk since the self-imposed coronavirus. We're going to look back over last week's game in the Aviva Stadium with Leinster and Munster, and of course the other games too, Connacht against Ulster. Look forward to our match at the weekend as well. So lads, 27-25 against Munster is a good victory, blew away the cobwebs, and some not bad performances considering 5-month layoff.
Yeah, considering the length of the layoff, actually, for both teams, the quality of rugby on show was pretty bloody good, actually. The intensity was way up there. It was a really good game to watch.
Indeed, yeah, I was very impressed with. I only saw the two Irish games, but I was very impressed with the intensity of both teams. And fair play to Munster, losing two of their three best forwards in the first 7 minutes. Tragically, one of them for the whole season, it looks like, or for a large part of certainly for the whole of the finish of this season, and possibly a lot of probably the rest of the year at least.
Could be 6 more months.
Yeah, so fair play to them for staying stuck into us for the whole game. In fairness, I thought we looked comfortable enough. Yes, it was 2 points, but I think they did come back from was it 9 points down to 2 points down.
They scored 2 tries when Devin Toner was in the bin.
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose harshly, we'll take that slightly harsh sin bidding against Toner. It'd be a much better thing to take than your two best players going off early. So, considering all of that, A, the quality of the game was excellent, and B, the quality of the size. Everybody was wondering would Munster have closed the gap a bit on us, and they probably have a little bit, not totally. So, like I said, I felt we were kind of in control of the game most of the time, and Dev Toner, in fairness to him, made a great little save just right at the end that got us off the hook.
Kind of redeemed himself, didn't he, for getting sin-binned? Although I think his sin-binning was kind of just a culmination of so many penalties going against us for the previous 5 minutes. I mean, we were well warned, and yet...
Yeah, we gave away an awful lot of penalties. Whoever
was next going to be penalised was going off.
Yeah, and that often happens. It's an innocuous enough offence, and especially when it's a guy who's only on the field a few minutes. But still, he took one for the team, as they say.
He was the next cab on the rank, and that was that.
What did you think of the penalty count? Like, it was massively against us, which is not a thing we're used to in Leinster. What did you think? Do you think that was justified?
It's hard to know. I mean, thinking back, I can't really think of any totally egregious penalties that was never a penalty. I can't believe you gave that. There wasn't a whole lot of that kind of thing. So maybe we were just a bit sloppy first came back.
Yeah, they were sloppy.
I mean, but it was kind of a bit of a phony war for us because we're already in the semi-final. Yeah. Obviously, we want to win the game and continue on our unbeaten record, and it's against Munster and all those good things. But ultimately, Munster had a lot more skin in that battle than we did. They, you know what I mean? Like, I think I was looking back. I think we've played 27 times since, including the game in Croke Park, and we've won 20. So, I think they've only won one game in Dublin in those intervening years. So they have a lot of pent up.
You could see the difference between, the game being a means to an end and an end in itself. For us, it's this game and the game against Ulster are stepping stones, obviously, to the Saracens game, whereas Munster needed something out of that game. I mean, you could see it at the end when when they had the losing bonus point and Casey kicked it out. Because they didn't want to lose that losing bonus point. Because that losing bonus point is actually an important thing.
Did you see his reaction at the end?
Oh, he was disgusted with having to do it.
Well, he must have been told to kick it out.
It certainly was. Yeah.
I think Omani took that in a post-match interview. I didn't see it, but I believe he kind of said, "Yeah, that was my decision. We needed to not lose that bonus point more than we needed to."
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, they've got bigger fish to fry, and that win on Saturday will be for naught if we don't beat them in the semi-final.
Yeah.
In 11 days' time.
Certainly. But if they hadn't got that bonus point, there still would have been a lot of irons in the fire next week against Connacht. Now it's looking like Connacht are going to completely change their team because they can't qualify for Europe anymore. So those little things, they make a big difference in terms of the overall picture of the game. I mean, they could have. I mean, it's possible they could have gone from coast to coast and scored a try and got a try bonus point. But it's equally possible that they could have thrown an intercept. Leinster could have got in and they could have lost their bonus point. And then next Saturday will be a very different proposition.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
I think Connacht have qualified anyway because they're putting in 8 teams from each.
I think they meant couldn't qualify for the Pro 14.
Yeah, sorry, yes.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Well, the Scarlets, I think, could easily get a bonus point against the Dragons, in fairness. But Munster only need to not lose, or if they do lose by less than 7 and get 4 tries.
Yeah,
so
it's looking like it's Munster, all right, isn't it?
It's
barring. I mean, they could get a bonus point win. A bonus point win and an Edinburgh loss would do them a favour, would it not? They might avoid the semi-finals altogether, or the quarterfinals altogether.
Have they? Well, I think Edinburgh have to lose and get nothing, though, don't they?
Yeah, it would have to be an Edinburgh nil. It would have to be a 5-0 match points.
Yeah.
Scenario. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yes. But here's the thing. Like, I watched Scarlets against Cardiff. Scarlets were all over them, but they're a great side to watch. Scarlets really are a great side to watch. When they play that kind of free-flowing rugby that they were playing on Saturday, I'll tell you, they're a very enjoyable team. So you wouldn't mind avoiding them as well, you know, if they're in the right mood. I mean, we see what happens when we take Scarlets too lightly. It's bitten us in the ass in the past.
Yeah. Only a couple of years ago, was it 2017? Where they lashed us in the RDS?
Yeah.
Yeah, nasty.
They've lost a lot of their better players, though. They're very different sides. And
they're not that team, and we're a far better team now.
Is Jonathan Davies back, or is he still out injured?
Still out.
Still out, yeah. So like, you take him out that side.
Makes a big difference, all right.
So there was a few very positive performances, I thought, but Johnny Sexton came back all guns blazing. Like we all saw his picture of his guns during training, and he looked in very good shape. I thought he hit the ground running, and you could see his enthusiasm, like when he held up Chris Farrell, and you could kind of hear him, Ric Flair, hooping and hollering when he. I thought Ryan Baird looked very, very good, and
I'm not quite drinking the Kool-Aid on the basis of that performance.
Yeah, but I just thought, like, if you look at the pass that he gave to Lowe for his try, I mean, he was very.
I'm not saying he had
I'm
not saying he had a bad game at all. I'm saying there were things that he really would have.
18 tackles.
I mean, at the end of the day, his first job in that team is to win lineouts, push the scrum, and he was calling the lineout, and the lineout was a fucking shambles.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on, he's played 4 times for Leinster. I think that's a big ask asking him to.
I know it's a big ask, but I'm just saying that if you're going to assess the entire performance,
yeah,
then there are things. I'm sorry. He will improve. There's no doubt about that. He's a fantastic prospect, but I'm just saying, you know.
Well, look, he's in an interpro against Munster, against RGC. Yeah. Okay, only for 7 minutes, and against serious heavy hitters. There, he's a young guy.
Billy Holland, who has probably 200 caps and is 35 years of age.
Yeah.
You know, he's exactly like, and I mean, I think like say Fardy, that wasn't one of Fardy's better games, and you would expect.
I don't know, all right.
Like he hasn't played in 5 months, and he's 35 or 36 years of age. You don't expect him to be, I don't expect him. I was surprised that Sexton came out so well. I was surprised that Fardy didn't play as well, but you would have expected that Fardy would have been there to hold his hand a little bit and help him through. I mean, it was a big ask.
All right, yeah. Just to correct you there, Dave. Edinburgh can't be caught.
That's right. They
They've
have
two
two wins,
wins.
don't they?
They've 2 wins.
Edinburgh
One point,
guaranteed
but
a
they have
home
to win.
semi-final.
Yeah, Edinburgh can't be caught for a top spot.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They've Munster are 2 wins behind them, so they can only end up on 1 win behind, and they can only end up in the same amount of points.
Yeah.
No matter what happens. So yeah.
I know.
So
It just popped into my head just as when you said it. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I'm not doing down bear. I'm just saying he's not the new James Ryan just yet. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but who is? Who is?
That's exactly it. But you see, I think there's an expectation that he will be, and I don't think that's fair on him.
Imagine the combination of the two of them, though, in Leinster.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're what? James Ryan is what, 23?
Something like that. And
Ryan Baird's 21. You
know,
know,
like,
you could get
imagine
20
them in
years out of
5
them.
years. Imagine them in 5 years' time. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's going to be
Because
ridiculous.
The way things are going, locks are only born when they're 30.
Well, that used to be the way it is. Nowadays, they're coming fully formed at 22.
Yeah, but they're going till they're 40.
How do we think Larmour played at fullback?
Well, he got a bit of stick for his high ball work, but you know, he's what is he, 5'10" or something, 5'11" maybe. He's not the tallest guy. I know guys like Conway can manage very well under the high ball without the height, but you could certainly criticize him for that. But it's a bit like the Jordan Murphy, Gervin Dempsey debate back in the day. What you lose on the defensive positioning, you gain on the attacking threat, and that's certainly the case with Jordan Larmour. So you know,
I think they're going to recall Rob.
Yeah, so do I.
Rob Kearney.
Because I can't see Owen Farrell sitting there going, "Oh no, I won't put this bomb up because he's only 5'10".
Yeah.
I think it works the other way.
I think he'll still play against Saracens, but I think he'll be on, especially now that
He's on the wing. But Dave Kearney's out now. Adam Byrne got injured and McFadden got injured, so we're quite thin on the ground on the wings. And I could
it's
see
a bit of a no-brainer to go Rob and Larmour and Lowe,
Yeah, I'd say that. And I'd say that'd be our best. I think that's our best combination for the game against Saracens anyway.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. Ringrose, however, possibly could have been, the other 13 who didn't get man of the match, possibly could have. Him and Sexton.
A bit more.
Yeah, well, see, you love criticising him for that.
I'm just telling you the truth. He makes some great breaks. He makes some great breaks, and he rarely gives the pass. And he's tackled to ground. And he looks sensational, and he makes 40 meters of a break, but it could have resulted in a try if he gives the pass momentarily earlier.
It's a valid criticism, and we saw it. We did see it on Saturday. I wouldn't be quite as harsh on him I wouldn't be quite as.
I think he's a super player, but I just wish he'd passed the ball a little.
But I agree with you, and it was perfect. You were perfectly accurate in your assessment of him on Saturday. He did take an awful lot out of the ball that maybe he didn't need to.
Well, I thought he was looking sharp anyway.
Maybe I would have given him man of the match. I would have given him man of the match. I mean, I'm not going to go.
Yeah, well, it is surprising that they didn't give the man the match. I was thinking about. I rewatched the game. I rewatched the last 20 minutes tonight, and I was just saying to myself, I wonder if on Sky, BT, or the BBC, if they kind of have if it's already kind of said, well, the winning team must have the man of the match. He has to come from the. I was surprised. We very rarely see the losers also produce the man of the match.
We need more Reggie.
We do need more Reggie.
Do you remember that?
But I think they might have. I think sometimes I think some of the pundits now are quite Munster biased, like whatever channel you're watching.
I think there's an element of the people naturally think that, well, they've won, so the man of the match must come from that team. And there's also an element of that you want to speak to a certain guy, so you make him man of the match because he'll be a good interview after the game. So I don't know. I'd say if Damien Ende had been in any way competent, they would have given him man of the match.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he wasn't.
Yeah, well, he was used as a decoy a lot, in fairness to him.
Yeah, they
But
pretended
yeah,
he was a rugby player.
he wa- he wasn't exactly prominent. All right, that's for sure. But we'll see how. Like it's his
Think
first
about his
game.
little late dig on Sexton in the
Yeah,
kidneys.
he was given a little bit of that, all right. Look, it's hard for a guy coming into a new league. Like it really is. I mean, it's coming into a new country in a new hemisphere and coming into a new league. It's actually tricky. So I'd say it's going to take him a game or two to get his.
I'm sure there's some lads sitting down in a pub or whatever in Limerick thinking, "Go on, you good thing."
Yeah. Yeah, but I'll tell you. You see, the thing is, Van Gran won't, because Van Gran knows that what if you get a TMO who decides to actually that's a penalty.
Maybe so.
Or even a yellow.
Yeah.
Stephen Archer had a bit of a headbutty thing on Sexton as well at the end of the first half. So there was a bit of that. There's a bit of what they call shithousery going on I suppose from both sides a bit. But yeah, there was a few notable ones. There are two that we noticed as Leinster fans.
I'm sure if we, and I include myself in this, I'm sure if we opened the other eye, we could see plenty of incidents of Leinster shithousery as well. So.
Well, I was about to say that there's always a lot of talk among fans of any team about bias from the officials or the pundits or whoever against their team, because as fans of Leinster, we're bound. That's the way we're bound to see it. Like, did you ever go to a match with a load of Leinster fans and hear them say, "Oh yeah, the ref was bang on the whole time"? No, never.
I'd just be happy for a lot of Leinster fans to know the offside rule, John.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or that there was a ruck formed.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the official. I mean, I don't like Clancy, but I don't think he's biased. I just think he's incompetent.
Yeah,
Brace,
well, he was.
I thought Brace was perfectly fine. I mean, he is actually Welsh. It's
yeah.
Joy Neville, I think, is a future star of refereeing. And see, JP Doyle is out of a job.
Yeah, bring him back. Terry Neur's JP Doyle. Bring him back.
What?
So
really,
perhaps he should be brought. I mean, if he could be brought back into the Pro 14 fold, as it were. Well, not back into it, but into it, because he is originally Irish.
He's Terry Neur, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So
he is. Terry Doyle was his father, a very famous referee and administrator.
Owen Doyle or Terry Doyle?
Terry Doyle.
There you go.
I thought Owen Doyle was his father for some reason, the ref. No?
Well, anyway, he's Irish, and let's bring him back. There's not enough good Irish refs in the Pro 14, and he is a good ref.
He's a good ref. Yeah. I mean, with the obvious, with my pre-mentioned exception, most refs are decent enough. Rugby's a bloody hard game to referee these days.
Oh yeah,
bloody hard game to referee. I think there should be a second official on the pitch.
Rugby league.
If it's a good idea, Robert.
Fair enough.
So lads, I suppose because it's been so long since we've spoken about rugby, and Leinster have gone through the process of kind of not signing anyone for next season. As we know, they brought through 5 young fellas from the academy they promoted: Ryan Baird, Harry Byrne, Jack Dunn, Tommy O'Brien, and Dan Shannon. It's surprising when you see some of the other clubs bringing in some big names. It's and we've lost a lot. Like, it's not like we're kind of, well, we're full already. And if you go through the guys that we've lost, okay, like there's a couple of props went to one guy, Jack Ainger went to Connacht, and your man, the Roman Salaman, went to Munster. But like, we also lost a couple of very experienced fellas. Rob Carney, as we know, is probably jacking it up, and Joe Tamani, an Australian international, and obviously McFadden. So you're kind of losing a lot of experience in that back line. Yeah. Guys with maybe 200 or 300 international appearances between them, not to mention rakes of Leinster caps. And we're just promoting a couple of young fellas, really. you just hope that that we're not spreading it too thin, you know. And like there is obviously the raison d'etre for all the provincial teams is to bring through Irish qualified players for the national side, but you have to balance that with bringing through these guys, but also kind of have the experience on the pitch to make sure.
Win nothing with kids.
I think you're right, Jason. I think there's a balance that's actually really, really difficult to strike. I would have been happy if we'd signed an NIQ outside back, just to have a bit of experience in there. But having said that, where are you going to get a player that improves what you already have, who's prepared to not really play all that much in the big games, and is an improvement over the likes of Conor O'Brien or, well, any of the O'Briens, or Hugo Keenan or the guys in the wing. So it's actually very, very hard, A, to find that guy, B, to persuade him to come to Leinster, and C, to do it in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah, I know. But
we're not looking to sign starters.
What you don't want is you have a kind of, like say, Leinster, and I'm using this word advisedly, but like Leinster kind of have a dynasty over the last 10 or 12 years. But like so did a team like a club like Leicester. And, you see how far they've fallen in the last few years, for whatever reason. But, that can, or even Munster, take Munster. I mean, like they haven't won anything since 2011. And, I don't know, a few years before that, you think, Jesus, are they ever going to be beaten? Especially, I remember in 2009 leading up to that, after their quarterfinal win over Ospreys, think, God almighty, I don't know how we're going to beat them in that semi-final. And, like they really haven't played they've played very few good games in those intervening 11 years.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. It's something that it's when you're on the tipping point, you have to be very, very careful because, like you say, it's very easy to start sliding down that slope. When you start sliding down that slope, that slide starts to gain momentum, and you find yourself like Leicester kind of are, like Bath were a couple of years ago. That they seem to be coming back a bit, and it's interesting how Bath came back. Bath came back through having a lot of that really good England under-20s side that won the Grand Slam maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Guys like, so that's kind of, they kind of went away because they were signing foreign players and big name players, well, big-ish name players. And I don't think it really worked out for them. It's when they went back to, being Bath that they kind of rediscovered their mojo. I mean, they're not where they were, obviously, but they're a lot better than they were 5 years ago. But Leicester are on a downward slope as well. It's going to be very, very difficult to arrest that.
Bristol are where they were.
Yeah.
That's what's happened. But anyway, it's a tough one. But in fairness, Leo Cullen announced before the pandemic that we weren't going to sign anyone for this season. So, the pandemic only made it a bit more, or a bit less likely that we were going to, no matter who gets injured or what happens, like having people traveling across borders out of the blue is not, it needs to be planned in advance at least.
Golf society, John.
Well, of course, yeah. we also have, in that, within that whole pandemic thing is also a big cash hit for the union. So signing extra players is, for that reason as well, is going to be a pain in the arse. So,
the point is, John, the point is that, say, I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate on guys' salaries, but I can guarantee you that Joe Tomani, Rob Kearney, and Fergus McFadden were on a lot more money than the 5 guys that have been promoted from the academy.
For sure.
And so you know what I mean, like that there is obviously there's cash there. We're after losing Sean O'Brien 9 months ago to go to London Irish. So like I'm just saying that, okay, we're bringing through a lot of young guys and it's great to see, but it takes it takes a while for those young guys to step up to the same level and experience as those 4 seasoned guys that I've mentioned that have gone. And for us to try and compete, like, you know, in the last 2 seasons, we've been in both European Cup finals and both Pro 14 finals. This year, we're already in the semi-final of the Pro 14 and quarter-final of the Heineken. We've very high standards to try and achieve, and yet we're not necessarily replacing like with like. That's my only point. And I just hope that we're not leaving it a bit too thin, bringing through all these guys that will be very good. If you think back to maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe it might have been Leo Cullen's first season in charge, when he had a lot of the guys that are currently starting for Leinster.
Yeah.
When we were beaten out the door by Wasps, was it over in?
Start any of those guys.
We started them all against Bath and beat
Started
Bath.
all against Bath.
That's the game. Sorry, Bath. But like, what I'm trying to say is that we just need to be. I think we need to be careful that we don't spread our resources too thin and don't have enough experience in our team to compensate for the guys that are leaving.
If things were as normal, I'd say Leinster would have gone out and signed a utility back of similar standard to Tammany or somebody like that. But here's a question: if the ink hadn't been dried on the contracts before the lockdown, would Diende and Snyman have been allowed to come to Munster? Tying back to what you were saying about, you know, the tightened finances.
Well, I believe they're not coming out of Munster's budget.
But they're not coming from either the IRFU or Munster's budget.
So somebody else is paying all their wages.
Apparently.
Fair play. He's pissed off this morning.
JP, isn't it? That's who I heard anyway.
Actually, JP's paying everyone's wages down in Munster if you listen.
Well, like, it's okay, but I did go and check that, and it's like there is an article by Murray Kinsella that he does allude to it in his piece. He's far more well connected than any of us.
Well, I think it's the same as Rory, what's his name, the golfer?
Rory McIlroy.
Rory McIlroy is paying for all these guys in Ulster, and then turns out it was bullshit. He's not paying for them. What
I know.
It wasn't. Sorry, but the Rory one wasn't. And like I give you an example, like say, Jamie Heaslip's salary was pretty much topped up significantly by Bank of Ireland.
I don't doubt
that, and I know that for a fact.
I don't doubt Munster have a benefactor. I'm just not sure it's JP McManus, because he's always been very much a fear Gael, if you know what I mean. Yeah. He ploughed a lot of money into Limerick GAA, And I'm not sure how much of a rugby fan he is, but anyway, it's irrelevant. But sure, no doubt they have a benefactor. I'd say he woke up with a bit of a pain in his wallet this morning now, seeing that Snyman's going to be out for a long time. But okay. So if the RFU were paying for them, do you think they would have been signed if things hadn't been done pre-lockdown, if you know what I mean? I'd say all the costs have been cut.
Case of having to.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'd prefer to have their own homegrown player that's equally as good as, or, you know, in the same ballpark, but they don't. They don't have the quality of fellas coming through. And they try and spread the resources around the country as best they can. Some people think it's not a bad idea, other people hate it. But like, they've got to do something, because you could have 5 out halves sitting behind Johnny Sexton in Leinster. What are you going to do? Are you going to keep 5 of them just continue playing for UCD and Old Belvedere and Lansdowne and whoever else? Because only one would possibly, you know, 1+1 on the bench can play on a match day Leinster team. So you've got 3, 4, 5 other very quality good fellas training with the squad, but only, you know, talking out for their club. Like, is that any benefit to them? They're just going to get pissed off and bail off to, whether it's France, England, or, you know, in Carl Marsh's case, over to America.
Well, it depends on how many you're losing. Sorry, Dave.
I think perhaps then the RFU should think about a loan system rather than actually moving guys full time.
Yeah, but like
because
we spoke about this before. We spoke about this before. Like the RFU wanted to move Joey Carberry to Ulster. His father stepped in and said, no, he's not going to Ulster. He's better chance of being successful by moving to Munster. And it was his father, a current Leinster employee, who advised his son to move to Limerick. So, you know, like he wants to play, he wants to start at out half. He doesn't want to be filling in while Johnny Sexton is away
He
with
just
the
wants
Irish
to be not
team.
injured.
Or sorry.
He just wants to be not injured. In fairness,
Well, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. But I mean, like he suffered his two most significant injuries while playing for Ireland, breaking his wrist against Fiji and wrecking his ankle against Italy in the warm-up this time last year.
yeah.
I still think his best position's fullback, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, it could well be. It could well be, Dave. Like, but he sees himself as an out half. So, you know what I mean?
There's another factor to this, though, Jason. You say that only two guys can be in a match day 23. That's true, but it depends on how many you're going to lose to Ireland. If you've got Sexton, obviously is going to be going to Ireland. If you've got
John, let's just stop it right there. The players, the matches that are played when Ireland are playing, the matches that are being played are absolutely inconsequential matches to the better rugby players. They don't give a shit playing. They could well play the Ospreys or the Scarlets when Ireland are playing France that weekend, but they know full well that those two matches are vastly different, and they only, if they're anyway good, they only want to play the national team. They don't rate those matches. They're an inconsequential, insignificant match. We might, because we love going to watch and support Leinster and want to go to as many matches over the course of the season as possible. But the players don't think like that at all. Those matches are stepping stones to get on the starting 15, play in Heineken Cup semi-finals and quarterfinals.
How many of them made their debut in those games?
I'm sure they did. And if the fella is 19 making his debut for Leinster and he's playing against the Dragons on the weekend that they're playing against when Ireland are playing against France, and if he's 27 and he's still playing for Leinster and hasn't made his Ireland debut and he's playing against the Dragons the day that Ireland are playing France, if he looks at himself in the mirror, would say, my career has not been a success. Sure, I've got 50 Leinster caps, but I don't have Leinster caps when all of the first team players are available for selection, or when Leo and Stu are sitting down to pick a team and they're picking the Heineken Cup final or Pro 14 final team, and those lads will not even be near the reckoning to get into it if they're not near the Irish squad. You know that.
Absolutely, but
Stand and wait, Jason.
Hmm?
They also those who stand and wait.
yeah, well, the thing about that, Jason, is that yes, if they're still there at 27, where you know, if anybody's making their Leinster debut at 19, they're bloody good. You're usually 21. So if they're doing it at 19 and 8 years later are still playing the Dragons while Ireland are playing, absolutely they're not going to think their career is a success. But if they're still playing when they're 21 or 22, that's fine, as long as they're getting, as long as they're getting.
What about the two Byrne brothers? What about the two Byrne brothers who are in their mid to late 20s now? One bailed off to Bristol. 27, right? So they made their debuts. They were, you know, they were really big name players when they were in school. They won the Schools Cup with Clongowes. They came through. They were signalled out as being potential replacements or, you know, future Irish internationals. They just, you know, they'll be beyond. But like, they're not going to, like, they play in those matches. Come the Heineken Cup final, they won't be in the squad.
Well, that's an example of the type of player you're talking about. However,
that's exactly it. Yeah.
For every one of them, like, there are three options. You end up, you know, with a career. Some guys are happy with a career that you know, like that. You know, some guys just are. Other guys are not. They're a lot more driven. And guys like that may well move to another province. I think Brian Byrne. I think he wasn't renewed, and then he was lucky to get the gig in.
I think he was sent on loan, wasn't he?
He was sent on loan initially, but at the end of that season, he wasn't renewed, so he was lucky enough to pick up a bit of work. So it's not like Bristol came and headhunted him and took him away from Leicester in the same way as Munster would have headhunted Joey Carbery. Like guys who don't have options to go to other provinces or other teams are happy to stick around. It's guys who are getting asked to go to Munster or to go to Ulster who have potential. And quite often they're the guys that Leinster don't want to lose. Like, did we want to lose Joey Carbery at the time? No, we didn't. Absolutely not. With hindsight,
it was his decision to take up the offer.
Yeah, fine. Well, it always has to be the player's decision. I mean, despite what people will say to you, nobody puts a gun to their head. People explain the situation and say, look, things will go well for you if you go to Ulster or Munster or wherever the hell. But nobody actually says, go to Munster or die. Nobody says go to Munster or you're out of a job. It's the way it's, in fairness, none of us are there, so we don't really know what is said. But I don't think that anybody ever says, if you don't go to Munster, you can go home. I think people say, if you don't go to Munster, that's fine. But, if it's between you and another guy who's doing what we tell him, then maybe he'll get the job if you're both in the same ballpark.
If you have somebody by the balls, it doesn't matter whether you ask him or tell him, they're still going to do what you want.
Yeah, there's an element of that, of course.
Like, maybe so. Look, who knows? But I just think that, the whole reason of rugby in Ireland is for the national team. And that's the pyramid that we work under. It's not the other way around. It's not the inverted pyramid like they have in GAA. It's the.
But the worry always is that you're gonna lose what makes Irish rugby so special is the way people buy into their provinces. And if you make it like New Zealand, where you just get...
No, I disagree completely, because, look, there's probably more passion in soccer than there is in rugby about supporting your club. And people support the club, and there could be no locals. There could be no people even born in the same country that the club is in.
I don't mean that. What I mean is the players themselves buy into their provincial jersey.
Jesus. I mean, if they can't motivate themselves to play for their club, like, you join a club and you can move and you join another club. Like, I mean,
it's almost impossible.
You're telling us Scott Fardy isn't, who joined Leinster 3 years ago, isn't committed to Token. Neeson played for Auckland, or
just the same as Andy Conway is committed to Munster, and that's fine.
Exactly.
But all I'm saying is, if you make the revolving doors so fucking easy that, today I'm playing for Munster, tomorrow I'm playing for Connacht, who cares? I'm just getting paid. Rugby is a game where...
Look at Ulster. I mean, there's I think it's 4 or 5 fairly senior Leinster players currently tugging out. I mean, there's Madigan, Marty Moore, Jack McGrath, Cooney, and Murphy. Like, that's 5 of their Madigan. I'm not sure if Madigan's going to be a starter over Burns, but Burns is after coming over from the UK. You got A.B. Matheson as well joining. He played for Munster. He played in France, and he played obviously in New Zealand. I just was going through their team to their squad today. On their website, they have 41 senior players listed. Of those 41, 24 were not born in Ulster.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's 58% of their squad is non-Ulster. Yet they are in the quarterfinal of Europe and fighting for a semi-final position, which is quite a successful return on the season so far for them. So, you can't really turn around and say that, because they're all not, inverted commas, Ulstermen were born in the 6 or 9 counties,
I don't think anyone
that
said
they're not committed to the team.
It's not going to be a problem on the pitch. The problem is that it might be a problem off the pitch. You've seen in South Africa, you've seen in Australia, and you've seen to a lesser extent, but still to an extent, in New Zealand, what happens when you degrade the provincial identities. I mean, Australian rugby is broke, stone broke.
Because it's broke for many reasons, Dave. But like, if you think that,
one of which is, Jason, is they try to build a pyramid from the top down.
Well, I mean, Dave, let's face it. Rugby in Australia has always struggled. They've got to 3 Rugby World Cup finals, and yet they are still the 4th, possibly the 5th most popular sport in the country. No one is interested in rugby union in what?
Like in Ireland.
No one is interested in rugby union. They can't fill their stadiums when the national team plays. They can't fill it when New South Wales play against Queensland. You just have to see the difference in appetite that the sporting public has in Australia for an NRL, the state of origin game between the 2 provinces or 2 states compared to when they play each other in Super Rugby. You can't get a ticket for a state of origin game, whereas probably 20,000 at a Queensland game in the same stadium. Likewise, the only time that Australia fill out games is when an Irish team, like an Irish or the English rugby team goes and tours there. They barely sell out Bledisloe Cup games.
If state of origin was in Ireland, there's only one team would be able to field a team.
Yeah.
If you applied state of origin rules, right? So that's why rugby union has kind of failed in Australia for the exact same reason.
Well, no, hold on. No, you have to go back to the whole history of the state of origin. Rugby league in Australia was mainly the most successful league was always the New South Wales Rugby League, and all of the good Queensland players drifted down to play in it, but there was enough of them who were drifting down. And then when they expanded, they set up the Broncos, and I think there's one other team, the Newcastle Knights. So there's 2 teams actually, or there was, I don't know, it might have changed now, but there was 2 teams that were specifically based in Queensland. So like, you pretty much had the Broncos, probably, I'm guessing 75% of the Maroons team was from the Broncos because they were playing as a club side. And then you had, fellas like Mal Malinga, who was playing down in Canterbury, but he was just a driving force behind it.
And I agree with all that, but the point I'm making is that in Australia they went too far degrading the provincial identities. They expanded too quickly, and expanded maybe one team too many, and then it didn't. I mean, do you remember what they used to have across the top of the stand in Ballymore? You remember, Jason? You were there.
Yeah.
You can trust a Queenslander. No, you can count on a Queenslander. That whole idea of a provincial identity has gone in Australian rugby, Australian Rugby Union. It's still there.
But those teams are a throwback to the past. Those, like New South Wales and Queensland, were representative teams. All the clubs, they all played for, Souths and University and Wests and whoever else.
Do we know any other teams that emerged like that anywhere in the world, a bit closer to us?
But hold on. But the point is, though, John, that those clubs have failed because they didn't have the support base to justify a professional entity. There's just no one interested. It is the privately educated people in Australia and no one else. The local fans on the side. It's like Ireland. It's like rugby in Ireland 25 years ago. It's like rugby in Ireland 25 years ago, when there was pockets of interest in it throughout the country, but very little. And the only time people would be interested in going was for the 3 or 4 internationals a year. No one gave, they were slagging they were slagging Darcy on the weekend of saying, oh, well, he probably would remember playing with 200 people at a match when he was started off his Leinster career.
Exactly.
That's the way it was.
The point I'm kind of making is that Australia is. I'm not saying Ireland's there yet. What I'm saying is Australia is one possible direction off the road we're on.
Yeah.
Alternatively, and you'd have to admit the IRFU are very good at stewarding the game, so you'd hope that they wouldn't. But it is a warning sign.
Oh, look, I don't think none of us want to go down the whole road where there's an open draft system and the top clubs or top players are all put into a draft and they go willy-nilly. We're talking about pretty much an overflow. Like if you look at Ulster, like where did those guys go? Like some of them have gone to reboot their careers. They, the Marty Moores moved and went to England. Jack McGrath needed a new impetus in his life. Madigan left when Sexton came and he went to France, moved to England, and he's come back to try and reboot his career. Cooney, likewise, he's travelled around a couple of provinces. And Geordie Murphy moved to get game time because he may or may not have seen the writing on the wall in Leinster and thought, well, there's kids coming up behind me here that I'm going to struggle to keep my position in. So, like they have to be, you can't just ring fence each particular province and say you can't have anyone who was born in one province.
What lunatic is saying that?
No, I'm just saying down the road is a potential warning sign. That's all.
All we're saying is you've got to have a balance. You can't just go.
I agree. I agree in everything. We need to be careful about it. But I'm also saying you can't deny people an opportunity to move and to further their career in another club.
I mean, generally, I don't have. I think some guys made mistakes by moving, but it's not because they shouldn't have moved. They should never play for anyone but Leinster. I think they may have made mistakes, but that's all. My problem isn't theological.
Anyway, we're getting a bit.
So obviously, like we again just tipping on it, the finances of the whole union itself. We kind of mentioned it, but like they are obviously under a lot of pressure, like the unions are, and also the branches. We know that there was no season tickets on sale for next season. They've obviously brought in this membership, and then obviously for Leinster's point of view, we missed out on that home semi-final in front, that extra game in the Pro 14, along with the quarterfinal against Saris. I suppose they have to be a little bit more clever on how they try and raise some finance.
Put a few cabin people in charge. They lost 3 to 4 million if you think about it, just from the Munster match in the Aviva and the Saracens match in the Aviva. That's a lot of money to come out of your budget. Now, they mightn't have budgeted for the Saracens game, but they would have budgeted for the Munster game. Actually, Mick Dawson himself said it in the Q&A and we all know that they don't budget for quarterfinals, but they do budget for the matches that they have. So, I mean, that's a big loss. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly, it's significant hole in the finances. And going back to what you were saying, it would have tied into the decision not to, go be too flahoolic with the old wage bill.
Well, if you look at, you've just mentioned season tickets. There's 13,000 season ticket holders who would have been paying, I don't know what the average cost of a season ticket is, but it's a lot of money. And now at best, they're paying the few quid for the season ticket that they've actually charged for the membership that they've actually charged. Plus, most people have been given a refund. I know some people waived it, but most people have been given a refund for the last few games that they didn't get, a few home games. So there's more money that they've lost. They've lost, they've lost their gate, like you said, against Munster, against Saracens. The Pro 14 semi-final in the RDS probably going to be against Munster. That's gone. If this goes on much longer, I think you said it to me a good while ago, Jason. If this is still happening at Christmas, they're under they're in serious trouble.
Well, I'd say if there's a second wave and matches are cancelled again, and then the whole we have to go through another process of like I mean, I presume like they need no better. Like we just don't have the TV deals that can keep things going, unlike the football, in England or whatever. I guess that the World Rugby are trying to do their best by organising that 8-team tournament in November with the Six Nations plus 2 others to try and I guess I don't even know what TV company, what TV stations it's going to be on, but I guess it's to try and garner some much needed TV revenue that they can then trickle down amongst all the unions.
Yeah, it'll keep the lights on, but as you say, if we go into a second period of complete lockdown where there are no games, never mind no crowds, then everyone, even from the best run unions to the worst run unions, are going to be that far from going under. The TV money that we're getting at the moment from the Pro 14 and whatever comes in from Europe will keep the lights on, but not much more.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw today actually the Southern Kings seem to have drawn a line under their season, saying that they don't have the resources to or that they're not contractually obliged to finish out the rest of the season, so they're just going to draw a line under it and move on and save themselves a few $100,000.
South African Rugby issued a further statement this afternoon saying that they remain committed to having 2 teams in the Pro 14 or whatever. But at the moment, those teams can't travel.
Yeah.
So as things stand, I mean, they could have all the fixtures set up for next year, but as things stand, those teams can't leave the country, or they can't come into our country, is more to the point. So they've decided to put the whole thing on hiatus. So we'll see how that. Yeah. But that's another thing. I mean, that's another thing, and that actually puts pressure. Not so much in Ireland because of the way we do things, but that puts pressure on jobs in European rugby, in France and in the UK, because there's a lot of decent enough in South Africa. If South African teams can't play any rugby, and the players that have to be made redundant, they'll be looking for jobs in France and in England. And they're not going to be subject to international call-ups and stuff like that. And they'll be cheap. The South African could be the new Pacific Islander. But that, which could put pressure on, rugby in the Pacific Islands, because Pacific Islanders, they do send an awful lot of money back home.
Yeah.
So, and then it'll have an effect on young French and English, in particular, rugby players.
I think maybe next week we'll have a bit more of a talk about that, and also maybe just look at the potential of some extra South African teams joining. Like there was a lot of rumours that we might see some of the better clubs joining after they've been sort of excluded from the Super Rugby. Which I thought was very interesting, which emerged over lockdown, was Leinster working with the Crusaders to analyse each other and kind of.
Yeah, on Saturday.
What's that?
You can see it on Saturday with some of Leinster's kicking. Some of Leinster's tactical kicking on Saturday was very Crusaders-like. We got a try from it, and we nearly got another. You could see that they haven't been idle over the summer.
Yeah. And I was just checking that on the Crusaders website, I noticed that. Do you remember Andrew Goodman played for Leinster for a couple of seasons? He's on the coaching staff down there now.
Wow.
With the Crusaders, yeah. I hadn't realised that. I just saw his name on there on an article.
A solid journeyman. And I mean that in the best sense.
Like, that's who we were kind of the standard of player that we were kind of talking about, that would have been in the Joe to replace the Joe Tamani, or come in and give for want of a better word, the midweek side a bit of solidity and experience to bring through those younger kids.
guys like that often make the best coaches because guys like Brian O'Driscoll, or to make a really extreme example, Gavin Henson, are very naturally talented players and don't necessarily have to do the work that the middle of the road guys have to do, or that guys who aren't blessed with as much natural talent. And the guys who aren't blessed with the natural talent tend to learn a lot more in their quest to be to get into the same ballpark as the guys who have the natural talent. So in that learning, I think they tend to become, potentially better coaches, and also the fact that they don't have a big profile makes it easier to be a coach.
A national figure we lost over the summer or over the whole lockdown thing was Jack Charlton.
Yeah.
And he played in that England team beside Bobby Moore. One of the most wonderfully talented players that England's ever produced. And Jack was one of the hardest workers that England ever produced. But it was Jack who went on to be a very, very successful manager. And Bobby Moore was at best a failure as a manager, because he couldn't explain what came so natural to him. He couldn't understand why it would have to be taught, because he never had to learn it. And it's the same. Rugby is the same. There's very few world-class players make it as world-class coaches.
Cruyff.
I failed jewel thief, Dave.
A failed jewel thief indeed. Yes, I see his heir as England captain has been having some fun.
He has indeed. He's been stitched up like a kipper, has he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But so that's kind of like, if you never had to be coached, you're going to find it very hard to know how to coach someone else.
Yeah. I remember years ago, Cheika giving a sort of a speech in Madigan's, I think it was, Madigan's pub. And he said, look, I was always a journeyman player, and I would give the underdog a bit of a chance rather than, just naturally siding with the internationals or the superstars on his side.
Lansdowne Rugby Club.
I'm not sure if that actually happened, but
no, that speech was in Lansdowne Rugby Club. It was the day after.
Was it? No, that was.
It was the week after we lost to Munster on Black Sunday, and it was after an Ospreys game in Lansdowne Road.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he he was obviously not a superstar player himself. He just was a good club player and maybe played interpro for New South Wales. I'm not sure if he certainly didn't shine anyway as a Wallaby.
He didn't get a cap, I don't think.
No,
I don't think he did.
No, he never did. Was he not?
Well, anyway, boys, Randwick. Yeah, I think that's who he played for. That's right.
Well, number 8 with Randwick in the same team as the current England manager.
That's right, yeah.
Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones had a few. There's a bit of Dylan Hartley came out with a few choice comments about Mr. Jones.
I missed that.
I'd say Eddie's big enough and bold enough to take it.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a book coming out shortly to try and sell a few copies.
We had a couple of questions on social media, Jay, just before.
Oh yeah, fire away there, Dave. Come on.
Kevin asked, do you know, has this fora put any restrictions on game time? I presume he means over the Interpro series. I assume there'll be wholesale changes for Ulster, but then there are 3, hopefully 4 consecutive weeks where some freshness may be helpful, but it will have to be a fairly full-strength team. Yeah, I'd say we'll see the other half of the top 30 players that didn't start on Saturday start next Saturday.
Didn't friend the Connacht coach say that in his interview anyway?
Yeah.
We're probably going to have another 15 or 15 changes.
Which
well, you can start the guys who benched and maybe 1 or 2 of the starters, and then blend in the rest, and rest maybe 13 of the starters, or 12, or maybe put a couple of them on the bench.
I'm not suggesting that the IRFU would ever tell one club to throw a game, but it would certainly, if Connacht rested a significant chunk of their players, and if Munster were to win that game, it will guarantee them a semi-final. Whereas if Connacht came out and went guns blazing and beat Munster, there would only be 2 Irish clubs in the semi-finals. So,
plus, from a Pro 14 point of view, it wouldn't be good either because you'd have to cross borders. Like theoretically, Edinburgh and Ulster are in the same political country, if not on the same island. And Leinster and Munster have obviously already played each other, so it gives no headaches to the Pro 14 until it comes to the final. So
that's true too.
Declan Byrne, who obviously doesn't care about the health of builders, asks, would now not be the ideal time to refurb the RDS? In terms of the fact that there's nothing going to be happening in the RDS this side of Christmas, including the horse show, yeah. But on the other hand, you can't, and we don't have any money anymore.
Well, I think the money's ring-fenced. But,
yeah, and it's going to stay ring-fenced until after this, I can guarantee you.
Yeah, but builders are still going since the beginning of June, and I don't think there's any problem with builders. Well, there have been a few sites shut down.
There have, actually, yes.
But in general, there hasn't been a massive problem with building sites or electricians or plasterers or carpenters or so I would think that yes, it is a good time if the money's there and everything is ready to go. It's a perfect time. I mean, there's no horse show. I've passed the RDS on a reasonably regular basis, and you normally see at this time of the year the stands have been taken down for the horse show, and obviously the stands haven't been taken down. They're still there, so they're not going to be needed to be moved until after. Until next year's horse show.
I presume that prick Gavin Cummins, because he will be delighted that the horse show's not on. Mick Thompson asks, do we have concerns about Larmour on the high ball long term, or is it just a bad performance? I think we kind of dealt with that.
Well, we did briefly, but yeah, do we have concerns long term? No, sure. The guy's young enough to learn, I suppose.
Yeah.
And he's got some
Should
good
I be concerned at his tactical astuteness and positioning and knowing how to read a game? Like, that's something that you kind of have to develop and have developed. Like, he's in his early 20s now. He's what, 23? Is he 22?
Be older than that, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, 20.
We should just. I think you should have that skill by now, and like, I don't know, I just don't really see it that often from him. And I remember, was it against Toulouse that he played at fullback away when we lost? And I thought he was poor enough that day.
That's a long time ago in his.
I agree. Yeah, no, it was a long time ago. But I'm not, and I know we've been off for a long time. I wouldn't throw him out just yet, but I'm not 100% convinced that him at fullback.
That's fair enough.
The question is, and I agree with you, Jason. The question is that something that can be learnt? I mean, we've been very lucky over the last.
Yeah.
Over the last, let me see now, what over the last 20 years, to have 2 fullbacks who had that instinctively. So it's not something that they had to learn or something that we had to look at. They were brilliant at it. 2 of the best defensive readers of a game in the history of the game. The question is that something Jordan Larmour can learn? He's still young. He's still building up that experience bank. They didn't have to learn it. They were able to do it from day one.
Yeah. Like, he's magnificent going forward. Like, I mean, he's one of the best broken field runners. He's almost like a Christian Cullen, and I'm probably over-egging it there, but he was brilliant when he gets the ball at full tilt. But, like, there's another part of the game at fullback as well. And if you're up against a bloody good side, it's a lot of risk to put in there. Like, your fullback needs to be rock solid, and you build from the back. And
there's a reason why Glasgow don't pick Nico Matawalu at fullback.
Indeed.
No, I actually would be in the camp that he can learn it, but I don't think he's going to learn it by the time the Saracens game comes around. So I'd have him on the wing.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
Have Rob Kearney there.
Yeah.
which we do.
You know, like if they don't keep Rob Kearney, I mean, I think he's leaving, isn't he? Has that been
Yeah, I
confirmed?
think
He's,
he's up.
I don't know, whatever,
He's
right?
coming out, I think.
I don't want to sign him off before he officially goes, but while they currently still have him, you know, if he's fit, if we've got a few injuries on the wings, like why not keep him a fullback? Unless his form is brutal, you know, and he's lost all interest. And
I can see him playing fullback this weekend.
Well, we'll see, actually, because Hugo Keenan could do with a run as well. Who is probably a more natural fullback than Jordan Larmour.
Absolutely.
But I don't think he'll be starting against Saracens at all. So I don't think there's any chance of that happening. So I'd say it will be Rob that starts on Saturday. And we see where we go from there.
Mm-hmm. Just going back to, I mean, I don't think Ulster can play as bad as they did against Connacht 2 weeks in a row, can they?
Hold my coat. You never know with Ulster. you never know. I mean, I'm not sure that they were all that bad, actually. I'm not sure that they were dreadful. I thought Connacht actually were pretty decent.
Yeah, Connacht.
It's really nice rugby.
I thought McFarland was quite harsh on them.
He was, but maybe they needed that. That's.
When you see the quality they have on their side, notionally anyway, on paper, against the quality that Connacht have on their side, notionally on paper, I'd be pretty hard on them. I think that wasn't a great performance that they turned in. It wasn't appalling, like they weren't abysmal or anything, but you know, they should have been better prepared for Connacht coming out of the blocks. Like, this is a team that are in the quarterfinals of Europe and are in the semi-finals of the Pro 14 and should be okay. They're both away, but they should be looking to hit the ground running if they're going to be putting up anything showing.
How much of what we saw on Saturday is a factor of what you just said, though, John? Where a bit like ourselves, for them last Sunday was a means to an end. That they have 2 games to get ready for a quarterfinal. I mean,
but Dave, like that was McFarland's point. Like he kind of compared and contrast Ulster to Leinster, and he was saying, well, Leinster are in the same boat as us, but they have a hunger and desire and a passion to win those games.
Yeah, but that's the point I'm making about what McFarland was saying. Rather than, I actually don't think Ulster were they weren't dreadful. I think it does a bit damning Connacht with faint praise, who I thought actually played some of the best rugby I've seen them play since, you know, for a while. You know, they had that quickness of the hands back. They were interchanging positions the way that they used to. I thought Connacht they were very, very slow to get back on the line. I noticed actually Connacht really slow to get back on the line when they were reforming their defensive line, but that's just as an aside. But McFarland won't be happy with how Ulster played, but on the other hand, one of the reasons why they played that way was because Connacht were actually quite good, I think.
Yeah,
anyway.
fair enough. They were good in attack. I thought you were going to say there, not since they put 40 points on Leinster and just before they won their double. Have they played so well?
That game has been completely erased from my memory.
Not Cian Healy's.
Do you have any more questions, Dave?
Pardon?
Any more questions?
No, that was it.
That was it?
Well,
my boys, thanks very much.
Picture this. Ooh. Anyway, carry on.
Well, thanks again for watching. And if you are following us on Facebook or Twitter, please give us a thumbs up and a like. Thanks again, lads. Cheers.